What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down something with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down some very important levels to watch for what the market's doing thus far. But just note that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link. If you deposit any amount of money, you're guaranteed 12 free stocks. If you deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 of them. If you deposit $25,000 more, you're guaranteed 75. The offer ends in just about 4 weeks from now. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. So I just want to mention that right now the market's looking a little bit more bearish. SPY is below its 50 EMA at 567.56. We'll see how this ends up holding up, at least moving forward. But for now, we're looking at some very, very key levels. So the question is, what's going to happen from here? What's going to affect these areas? The answer is it's going to be some data. So just know that today is Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. Okay, we had some initial jobless claims. This was a little bit above expectations. We had more than expected at 225,000. And then continuing jobless claims was very, very close to what we saw from before. So it's not really as impactful. The market did dip as this data came out. And now we have two sets of data. The first one is going to be at 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 15 minutes after the market ends up opening. We have the S&P Global Composite and Services PMI reports. So watch and see what that leads to. Then at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we also happen to have the ISM Services data. We have the ISM Services Business Activity, Employment, New Orders, and Prices all coming out. So I'll be watching this very, very carefully just to see how things end up going. But that's going to be a very, very important factor for us. I think that whatever happens with this data is going to give us more insights on services, and it's going to lead to a big move in the markets. Will we see a pump or a dump? I'll be watching and waiting for that very, very carefully. Then we have the 4 and 8 week bill auctions at 11:30 a.m. And besides that, we're going to be watching to see how things end up going. Now, I also want to mention that as far as things are developing for the markets, there's some fears right now about Israel potentially striking some of the oil infrastructure, at least in Iran. There's a possibility of them doing that in retaliation. This whole situation goes back quite a while. It's not necessarily starting with all of this. It's been going, on for decades and decades. But I just want to say that with all the tensions right now, things are still very tense as we're still waiting for Israel's response. If they do end up striking the energy infrastructure there, this could have a big effect on oil. So make sure you guys are ready for this just to be safe, which is going to affect the markets. So we will see how things end up going from that end. On top of all of this, there's a lot of talk about the port strikes that are still going on in the U.S. There's a lot of companies involved in this, so this is affecting like Samsung, not to mention Goodyear, Michelin, GM, Amazon, IKEA, and a bunch of these like Walmarts. So we're seeing a lot of this going on right now. This is very important. These strikes are still affecting the markets, leading to some downwards pressure, and this could continue if supply chains are disrupted. Besides that, the market was flat yesterday. I'm not seeing any crazy pieces of news besides auto still kind of declining a little bit. But besides that, I didn't see anything else that was too crazy on the news, at least for today. So let's now just talk about the charts. Right now, SPY is looking a little bit more bearish. We need to reclaim 567.75 to turn back up to at least 569.6. If we don't reclaim 567.75, we're at risk of tipping all the way down to about the 565s. If that fails us, we're looking for a bigger dip all the way down to the lower 560s. If we try to rebound, we could attempt to get back above 569, but the odds don't favor that. We're still looking kind of weak right here, and the odds are favoring some downwards momentum that's going to continue to build as we open. So look for some downside, and whether or not we get a bounce depends on this data. We'll see what kind of reaction we get. But as of right now, the charts are looking a little bit more bearish. We're still looking like we're rejecting, losing our support. Same thing with ES. We kind of popped a bit only to dip back down. So this is looking a little bit more bearish. We have the 5730 area as our support. We have resistance at 5763. We'll see if we break through this to start pushing, if we get a pop in rejection, if we start dipping. It's possible we dip lower, at least from a technical standpoint, back down to these lows. But then we'll see if we bounce or not. I'll be waiting for this very, very carefully. And then we're going to be watching to see what happens with all this other data that's coming out. For Nvda, we're trying to push higher. We're looking for basically 122 as our resistance, not to mention 124. Those are two resistance levels. If we end up losing 119, we're looking for a dip back down to 117. My gut tells me this could push for basically 122, if not a little bit higher in this range, 122 to 124. Then we could reject and dip back down. So watch to see how that ends up going. But that's going to be another very, very key factor for the way things are moving. For Bitcoin, we're dipping right over here. If we continue to fall, we're looking for 60,000 as our support. If that fails us, we could be dipping all the way down towards these lower levels, such as 58,000, but we still look more bearish in my personal opinion. For NQ is basically it has this resistance at 20,000. If we continue to fall, we're looking for the support down here closer to about this 19,800 area. If that fails us, we're looking for 19,700, which is where our gap support happens to be. Looks a little bit more bearish. Could be dipping for 19,800, at least from a technical standpoint. We'll see how things go with the data that's coming out, with the services data. We also look more bearish on the QQQ. We're looking at 478 as our support. If that fails us, we're looking for this gap fill all the way down to 475. Still looks more bearish nonetheless. For others out there, like Aapl, we look more bearish. We're rejecting here. We're looking at the support at 224. If that fails us, we could be coming all the way down to fill the gap at 222. So I'll be watching for that. The IWM Russell 2000 looks more bearish. We have resistance at 218, our supports at 215. We could continue to fall to 215 and maybe all the way down to these imbalances, especially as we have this gap to fill. So the odds do favor some more downside. For Coinbase, we're rejecting right over here. We could be dipping lower, all the way down towards 160. For Amazon, we look a little bit more bearish. We're looking for 182.89 as our support. If that fails us, we're looking for a dip to 180. Looks more bearish so far, but look at 182 to see how we end up reacting when the data comes out. Looking at Meta, we'll see if we reclaim 570 or not. If we don't do that, we're at risk of coming down to about 565 and then 560.75. Still has some bearish potential. Microsoft looks a little bit more bearish. We have this imbalance at 414, then 409 is the next support below that. So I see the risk of this also dipping a little bit lower. So please be very mindful of that. And then Google, for looking at this also is looking a little bit more bearish. We're looking at basically 165 as our support, followed by 164.35. Plus, there's a gap to fill at 162. So it looks a little bit more bearish as well. The whole market's looking bearish. The VIX starting to push up again. Let me just call out that the VIX has a gap to fill in the 21s, also another one in the 36s. So we'll see how the VIX ends up performing here. So be ready for this data release. Let me make it very clear, guys, that no matter what happens, okay, so right now the market looks bearish, obviously, but no matter what happens with all these data releases, if they try to pop the market again, it's a very easy strategy. This is a shorting opportunity because the market does have a lot more downside potential in October. If it doesn't pop more and just continues to fall, then once again, there's the market, the downwards pressure we're talking about for October, which is a part of seasonality. So it's not that difficult to kind of like trade this if you are very patient, you're willing to wait, and you have a lot of cash on the side. Basically, we look bearish. If they do try to pop the market again off the data, it doesn't matter. I don't think that's going to happen as we are looking bearish. But hypothetically, no matter what happens the next couple of weeks, if they do try to give us pops, those are more shorting opportunities as there's more downside potential in October. I want to make that very, very clear. All right. So thank you for listening. Have a great day, guys. I'll see you guys in a couple of hours for another update. Until then, be very patient with this market and get ready for some data releases at 10 o'clock a.m. Thanks again, and peace out.